Welcome to the West Coast Bias. I'm Andrew Nemec, joined by Jason Suke and Nemec. Suke, your lip looks healed. My stomach is mostly healed, relatively healed. We're headed in the right direction here.
Oh, dude, you'll be hurt again. Like my stuff is all surface area. You, on the other hand, you got your own thing going on there. I'm waiting for the next crisis.
The next shoe to drop.
The next shoe to drop. Yes.
This is a really interesting week in college football, and I think it kind of snuck up on folks. Obviously not the folks in Seattle with a Rutgers team that, well, maybe even Washington. I think everybody's got kind of a prove-it game this week. Sure. You got USC against Michigan. You've got Washington against Rutgers. Oregon, Indiana is a top 10 matchup. Even Oregon State has a better than you would have thought Wake Forest team coming to town. 4 really good games on the West region, and really just a really good week for football in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, college football is weird in that you can be at the point of the season when you've played 6 games and there's still plenty of question marks. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Miami is the one that comes to the front of my head that's actually feels like there's been real tests. Like, I think at this point, Miami's a little battle tested. But we'll start out here. You take a school like Oregon, who we all think Oregon's really good. I think Oregon's as good as anyone in the country, but the only game they've played against anyone that's remotely competitive was Penn State. And now what happened at UCLA, now it kind of makes you question, how good was Penn State? Like, when you look at the totality of Penn State right now, and I said this going into the Oregon game, right? I watched them play every one of their games, probably 2.5 to 3 quarters of those games. Penn State wasn't a good team. They just were playing crap competition. And then they give Oregon all they can handle, right? Double OT, and then they go and lay an egg at UCLA. So, like, what do I make of Penn State? And if my answer is I don't really know, then I think it's safe to assume, what do you really know about Oregon other than they're really talented? So that Indiana game all of a sudden looms really large. And for Indiana, I mean, last year you bullied everyone except for the 2 good teams that you played, and you got smacked around. And now we go into this year at Indiana and kind of looks similar. How good's Indiana? And then you brought up Washington. I mean, we are one play away from looking at Washington right now and saying, dude, what the hell happened to the Huskies? We thought they were going to be really good, but they have one of the most incredible comebacks we've seen against Maryland, where they come back from 3 scores, where they look dead in the water. And all of a sudden now you're like, well, can they beat Rutgers and keep this thing going? USC's fighting for their life. Like you said, it's a really, really interesting week across the board, certainly out west, but like you said, even on a national basis. Ohio State, who's number 1, and I mean, obviously number 1, you beat Texas, you look good against Washington, but I mean, that was a 1-score game in the 4th quarter, and now Illinois. So I just think there's so many teams in the country from 1 through 10, like with the exception of, like I said, maybe 1 or 2 that you still have massive questions about. And that's just the world we live in college football, because for these truly elite teams, they may only play 2, maybe 3 games if you have a tough schedule that really kind of test your mettle, and we find out exactly, what you're about.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about this Oregon-Indiana matchup is, one, thus far, Indiana looks more real than we anticipated.
Certainly for me, yeah.
This whole conversation about who the top quarterback is, and is this the year of the quarterback? There's 9 of them that could pop, but none of them totally have. The cream that's risen to the top is Oregon's Dante Moore and Indiana's Fernando Mendoza. Those right now, for a lot of folks, are the top 2 quarterbacks for this year's draft. Yeah. The NFL Stock Exchange is an awesome podcast that breaks down prospects all year. They do like a top 15 wide receivers, top 15 corners in June, July, preparing for the draft. And then they, every few months they go back over the positions. They do a big board. They did a mock draft this week, and Dante Moore was the number 1 pick. Yeah. And I know that's not what Oregon fan wants to hear, but just to kind of highlight how much this game has changed, this will be the most heavily scouted game probably that Oregon plays, because anytime there's flashy quarterback in a big game, at least for this year in the regular season at Autzen, anytime you play and you have a big time quarterback on one end and a big time quarterback on the other, you're going to get like the Jets, the Browns. I mean, they're all going to go to see this quarterback matchup. And I don't think people realize how good Fernando Mendoza is. 1,208 yards. He's completing 73% of his passes, 16 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he's only been sacked 5 times. We've seen this guy before at Cal. He's older. He's better. He has a better supporting cast. And really this matchup to me, and one of the things that has kind of run through my head throughout this season is this idea that Oregon finally looks different. Like if you went through and if you followed Oregon for years and years and years, I think there were years where the fan base went, once they got to the national title, like, we could win this. We could win this. We could beat Auburn. We could beat Ohio State. And maybe you could in the margins or whatever. But the reality was they had a Nick Farley. They had a Cam Newton. They had these like all world, and they just looked bigger. Ohio State was just bigger. And they had 35 to 40 dudes. And you maybe had 8, 9, 10 really good dudes on offense, and then 2 or 3 on defense. And then this year finally looks like a team where you go, oh, this is what it feels like to be a big bully. This is what it feels like for the first time to be where Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State were, where it's like, okay, our backups are going to come in and you're still not going to throw for a single yard because we're really, really good. Yeah. Indiana, to me, reminds me a lot of good, not the elite, but the good Oregon teams from the past. Yeah. An elite offense, a big-time quarterback. They have 4 different running backs that are averaging like 5.5 yards a carry or more. They've got 2 really good receivers. They've got weapons on offense. That offense is dynamic. This will be the toughest test for the defense in the regular season. Harder than Penn State. Indiana's good. Mm-hmm. Indiana's offense is good. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, and they remind me of those old Oregon teams where you're like, yeah, those 2 guys are really good. But by the third corner, man, I think they're in trouble. And it feels like an elite offense and a defense with a couple of pieces, but that once they get to those big games goes, whoa, these guys are much bigger. And again, that's kind of where Oregon used to be and isn't anymore. And that's why I think Oregon physically is going to wear down this Indiana team and pick up a win.
Yeah, sometimes you say something and it weirds me out because I'm like, God, that's literally like, get out of my head. This is Chip Kelly, Oregon, LSU. When they went down and played that game, I think it was down in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. They played that opener.
Yeah, I think it was at Cowboy Stadium, right?
Yeah, I think it was at Jerry's World down at the Death Star. I'm fairly certain. And that LSU team had like, was it Mingo was one of the DNs, and I think the Honey Badger was there, Tyrann Matthew, and all those guys. And I remember after that game, someone asked Chip about like, well, they have big, fast guys versus you prefer kind of little, fast guys. And Chip was like, no, I want big, fast guys. He goes, it's just hard to find them. So I want those guys. I just, I
don't have them yet.
I don't have them yet.
Yeah.
And you're right. And I just think that's a really good comparison because when you look at Indiana, Mendoza is going to be a top 10 pick, right? Yep. Surratt, their receiver, is a first or a second round pick. D'Angelo Pons, one of their corners, is a first or second round guy. Kamara, their defensive end, is really good. I mean, like you said, they've got guys, right? They've got guys that will play on Sunday. Just like Oregon had guys that would play on Sunday. But when I went through, and I was not as high on Indiana, right? I thought Indiana, we've seen these teams last year. We saw this from Florida State, did this the one year with Mike Norvell. We saw up at Michigan State the year that they had Kenneth Walker. We've seen teams that go in and bring in, 45 transfers, especially from the coach's old place. And that's what Cignetti did last year. He brought all those guys from James Madison. And they have a nice year. And this goes back to the Chip Kelly thing. Chip blew out bad teams. If you weren't buttoned up and you weren't disciplined, dude, Kelly was going to lay an ass whooping on you. But when he played teams that could stand up to him and be like, dude, your tempo and your scheme's not going to beat me. Oregon was, I'm not going to say they were average, but it was about a 500. It really was. It was about a 500 football team, right?
And good teams just kind of like, it's a popsicle tower and they just
they kind of crunched it. And last year, Indiana, they beat Michigan, but I don't know what that does for you. But the 2 teams, they lost 2 games last year, right? They lost to Ohio State and they lost to Notre Dame. Go back and watch those games. What happened? They just got punched in the mouth.
Yep.
They literally got bullied. Ohio State and Notre Dame both said, well, I'm just going to blow up the interior of your line and I'm going to put my defensive tackles in your backfield. So good luck running all your RPO stuff when you're running for your life. And then from an offensive scheme, we're going to turn around and hand the ball off and you can't stop us. And you're going to have to bring guys down. They run a really complex NFL type secondary where they do a lot of rotational stuff, really good safety play. Well, that's cool. But how do we run people out of complex coverage looks? we run them out of it.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's honestly, it's the simplest thing in the world. If we're doing all these safety rotations and we're disguising, they play almost exclusively zone coverage. They do a lot of these simulated pressures, which again, if you're not buttoned up and you watch Indiana will walk 7 guys up at the line of scrimmage and send 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that
they show you a lot of different looks and then do something else. They disguise well.
The best way to stop that? Oh, you're doing all this Johnny Jack around stuff. Cool. I'm going to hand the ball off and we're going to run it down your throat. And you will stop doing that because you're going to have to line guys up with 7 in the box or even 8 in the box and try to do it. So, and that's what Ohio State and that's what Notre Dame did. And it's honestly what Iowa did. I went back and took a kind of a deep dive into Iowa, which is the game that they struggled at this year. Iowa did the same thing. Iowa was in that game because Indiana could not block Iowa's interior defensive linemen. The 2 guards for Indiana, whose names escape me at the moment, no offense, but I wasn't really watching like for names.
You're good.
Indiana's guard play and to essentially their 3 in the middle, they could not block Iowa.
And that's where they're weak. Their interior offensive line is weak, and it's the opposite of their D-line. Their interior D-line is very strong.
And so being a former O lineman, everyone always talks about like edges, right? Oh, edge pressure. No, you want to blow up an entire offense. Because if you give me an elite edge rusher, and by the way, the right tackle against Iowa really struggled too, like a lot. But I can deal with edge pressure, right? I can chip, I can put tight ends in there, I can roll away from it. Right. If you are literally sitting in my lap, if I have an interior that doesn't allow my quarterback to step up, and if you have an interior in your run game that is blowing my interior line back, and like think Ashton Genty with the Raiders, if I hand the ball off in my RPO game, Indiana basically runs the triple option. It's a triple option and with a 4th option of I'm going to throw the ball. And if I am at my mesh point and I've got a defensive tackle in my lap, thanks for coming. It's over. And that's what the good teams have been able to do. So I love watching Indiana is really fun. When you watch Indiana play against teams that aren't buttoned up or don't have guys across the board, like if I was the University of Washington or if I was someone that didn't feel comfortable that going ahead, that my guy was the guy, I don't think Jed Fish is the guy there, I would back a Brinks truck up.
Oh, if I were UCLA and I had to fix my program, I would do anything in the world to get Cignetti.
What do you want? I love the attitude. I love everything about it. It's so well coached. But just like we said that teams have a lot to prove, we need Indiana to prove that in one of these games against a team that is buttoned up, that you will not just out scheme, that you can hold up for 4 quarters against a team that's physically superior to you. And I'm not saying they can't. If Oregon, Oregon is so aggressive, they go for it on 4th down. You miss a couple 4th downs. Dante Moore gets confused with some of the safety rotations that Indiana does. You throw a bad pick. Special teams, they're really, really good on special teams. They had a touchdown against Illinois. If you allow Indiana to get going, you're going to look up and you're going to be like, oh my God, we're in something here. So this is a really, really good test, but you're right that the overall depth, the overall physicality, and certainly along the lines, this should be a game at home where underlining they're 22-1. They don't lose these games.
Right.
You would think that over the course of 4 quarters that Oregon's size, the speed, the depth, the physicality, you would think eventually, even if this is a close game, as long as Oregon plays a clean-ish game, no dumb penalties, no stupid turnovers, and you just kind of play your game and realize, like Penn State, this is going to be a fight into the 4th quarter.
Mm-hmm.
We
need to drag this team into the deep water and get physical.
Body blow. It was the Penn State thing was 1,000 cuts, right? Or I like to say in boxing terms, body blows, right? You come out in those first couple rounds and you're just hitting the body. And it doesn't look like much. But all of a sudden you get into the championship rounds, you get into 9, 10, and everyone doesn't want to get hit in the body anymore. You start putting your hands down, you start bending over, and now we start taking shots at the head. I feel like this may be a body blow game for Oregon, where Indiana plays their ass off, and I don't know if they have enough in the tank, but especially from a defensive standpoint and just from being buttoned up, Oregon will have to play their best game because you said Indiana's offense is way better. It's a better quarterback.
I mean, they're legitimately
creative. It's so some of their stuff they do, like looking at it's not just RPOs, they do PROs. Like they do pass run options where it like the O line's running like jet protection, like short step, like two drop, like 2 steps punch. Like we're going to do a 3-step drop in these little kind of half boots with Mendoza where he's cocked and ready to go. And if you're playing a coverage that he doesn't like, or you start selling out to stop the pass, he'll either take it and run himself, or he's got a back right there almost in pass protection.
Right.
And they turn and they kind of do a little flip to him or shovel passes or hand
like
it off.
Reverse engineered it kind of.
Yeah. So it's not just RPOs, it's PROs. It reminds me, honestly, if I had to say one offense that this looks at, and again, to be fair, it's not like I'm watching some people will go with that. Kurt Warner will go and watch every game. I don't. I try to, like, when they're playing Indiana, I go back and I watch hunks of probably 4 Indiana games. And I try to watch a couple of the ones where it looks really good and then a couple of the ones where it looks really bad. It reminds me a lot of Urban Meyer. This is kind of the stuff that Urban Meyer was doing at Utah, Florida, and Ohio State, where it's a read option, but it's a little more creative than your traditional read triple option. But it essentially is a triple read option offense with the ability to throw. And you look at Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer had a lot of success running this offense, and that's kind of what it reminds me. And it's just really well coached. I have a lot of respect for Cignetti. I don't like the way they schedule. And I think they should play some tougher teams. And now we get it. Now you prove it. Indiana, I said at the beginning of the year, I thought Indiana was a paper tiger. I hate the way they schedule. You laid an old-fashioned ass whooping on a pretty solid Illinois team. Now go on the road and prove it. I don't know if Indiana has to win, but you can't get bullied. You can't sit here and get pushed around by Oregon and have this look like Notre Dame and Ohio State last year and then expect me to believe that you're like a legitimate national title contending team. One of these times you got to bow your back against these better teams. And this is your third opportunity to do it because I don't really count Illinois. Illinois is a good team. It's not elite. So you're 0 for 2. Prove to me that you can do it here.
Illinois was weird because last year I watched them and they were ranked and they played that Oregon game and I thought, okay, it's a top 25 team. This should be a pretty good game. Oregon probably wins by 2 or 3 scores in the end because they're more physical. Illinois didn't have a single player it didn't look like that would play for Oregon, that would start for Oregon. This Indiana team is very different. And I think this game is really fascinating to me in 3 really key ways. One is the quarterback battle. And Oregon fan doesn't want to hear that Dante Moore could leave after this year. Dante Moore will have the option to leave. And I'm not saying he will. And by the way, people who are already reporting like, well, I'm kind of hearing he wants to stay. No, you're not. You're not. They're not telling people what he's going to do. He might say to people like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about maybe going. Oregon's going to have a package for him, an NIL deal, depending on whether he wins the Heisman or whatever happens. He's going to have a choice to make. And he's going to get evaluated and NFL teams are going to evaluate it. And to be honest, if it ends up being that like the Jets have the number 1 pick and he doesn't want to play for the Jets, he might come back. Like you don't know yet. There's way too many factors. So we don't know, but he's in the discussion. Mendoza's in the discussion. I'm fascinated by this because Mendoza really he hasn't had his Dante Moore game. Dante Moore, say what you will about Penn State as a team, that defense is certified. We know they're bona fide. We know who they are. And Dante looked poised. He looked comfortable for 4 quarters and did a really nice job playing within himself. He made some incredible throws off platform in the pocket and proved, okay, certified. Here's a game that Dante Moore faces big time competition and handles it. Mendoza hasn't had that game yet. This is his game to do that. And not only that, right across from him is some pressure in the sense that it's his competition potentially for the number 1 pick. So that fascinates me. The other thing is in really last 2 weeks ago's battle against Penn State was about the tackles against the edge rushers. Oregon, Mateo Uiagalelei, Tatum Tuioti against 2 kind of weaker Penn State offensive tackles. Oregon's offensive tackles, much hyped, Isaiah World, Alex Harkey, Dennis Sutton on the edge caused some problems and kind of exposed that a little bit. And it became a battle of the edges. And you saw Dante Moore do a really nice job of working the pocket, working around that, making some plays, manipulating the pocket, getting outside. And that's kind of what you were talking about earlier, that you can escape even a dominant edge rusher. And Dennis Sutton was dominant at times in that game. And Dante Moore just kind of moved away from him. In fact, his biggest throw, he moves away from him and throws across his body. I believe it was to DeCorian Moore late in that game. This game's about the interior. Indiana's defensive tackles, their interior defensive line is really strong. It's better than Penn State's. It's better than Penn State's by a whole tier. Oregon's Poncho and Emmanuel Pregnon have been really, really good so far. In fact, I think Pregnon is the highest graded guard on the entire West Coast, maybe in the country.
They're the two best Oregon O-linemen. I know the tackles got all the hype, but Pregnon and Poncho. Poncho is a bully and is playing some really good football.
Poncho's going to be like a second-round pick, his third-round pick as a center, which means he's really, really, really good. Yeah. And Pregnon is quickly moving up the list as well. It's going to be fascinating who wins that battle, because if you push the pocket, and again, Penn State was able to get to the outside. Nobody's pushed the pocket on Dante. And if you're looking to see how good is this O-line really, Iowa's offensive line grades out as the number one offensive line in the country. And they gave Indiana some problems. Mm-hmm. And they did a pretty nice job. And that's why that game was the way it was. If Oregon can run the ball consistently, especially between the tackles, that is a massive, massive statement about this team later in the year. So I want people to really take note of that, because if Oregon's able to kind of do what they want between the tackles, I mean, that's a check in your category, and you wouldn't necessarily normally think of Indiana as a team that if you can control things between the tackles, that's like a major hurdle. It is in this case. Indiana's interior is really good. On the flip side, if Indiana is able to disrupt some things along the interior, that will raise some questions for college football playoff time, because let's face it, when we're evaluating this Oregon team, we're not evaluating them to see how they hold up against, frankly, like USC's defense. We know they're going to push them around a little bit. It's the games later in the season. So that's something to watch. The other thing is, and Penn State's receivers just had no chance, in part because Drew Aller couldn't do anything, but Oregon looked sticky. Their secondary looks sticky. This will prove whether or not they're sticky. Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper Jr. Are two absolute studs. They both have over 400 yards receiving this season. Surratt's really the alpha of that group. Teams will kind of shadow or shade things to his side, which has allowed Cooper to eat. But nobody else on that team has 200 yards. So it's all to those two receivers. If you're looking to see if this secondary is up to the test, there will be no tougher test in this regular season in terms of a passing attack. Damon Williams can do some things in space, and they've got some good players. But in terms of just pocket presence and picking you apart, Mendoza with Surratt and Cooper is really dangerous. So if Oregon can slow down the passing attack, again, that's another box you check for later in the year. Indiana on paper, when you think of the Indiana Hoosiers, you don't necessarily think, well, this is a team that could kind of challenge us at the highest level of our regular season schedule. But they've got some real pieces this year, and it's their passing attack and their interior defensive line. So those are a couple of things I'm watching really, really carefully. And if they can kind of keep Mendoza to like 220 yards, even if he throws a couple touchdowns, but he throws a pick and he just looks kind of better than average, but doesn't look stellar. I mean, remember when the joke used to be that Aliotti like made draft quarterback? You know, you could put together tape every year on Oregon because you could complete 80% of your passes on underneath stuff. Yeah. He didn't disguise pressure particularly well, so you always kind of knew where things were coming from. And everybody always had their best game against Oregon, right? I mean, that happened for years and years and years and years. That doesn't happen anymore. And Oregon needs to make sure they set the tone with Mendoza, and he looks pedestrian. You want Dante Moore to leave this game, and unfortunately for Oregon fan, the very best scenario is that we leave this game and Oregon fan goes, they think that guy's close to Dante Moore? Because if you do think that, NFL GMs probably also think that, and you need to understand that that's maybe his closest competition right now for the number one pick.
Yeah, and by the way, the from a team aspect, you know, the winner of this probably guarantees them a shot in the Big Ten title game, thus college football playoff. And look, we all think Oregon's going to the playoff, and Indiana's got another good chance. But I mean, we know if Oregon gets by this, remember, you can lose 2 games and still be fine. And you look at that schedule, and there's not 3 losses anywhere on that schedule. So you get by this, and same thing with Indiana. You get by this, it's Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue. So the winner of this, not only is there major implications, like you said, in the draft, but the winner of this really does. Neither team plays Ohio State. I mean, this is catbird seat. You win this, essentially you've punched your ticket to the Big Ten title game.
Smooth sailing.
And smooth sailing in college football playoff. So I think Oregon makes the college football playoff regardless. Indiana, I think this guarantees them. If they lose to Oregon, you know, they stub their toe one more time. And I do think there's going to be some people, if this is a 2-loss team, let's say they lose here and somehow they stub their toe against Penn State, with the way the schedule did, the criticism they took, and the way it looked last year, there's going to be some committee members that are not going to be happy with Indiana if they have 2 losses, and those 2 losses are to the 2 teams that are worth anything on their schedule. I'm not certain.
We forgave you one time,
yeah,
and you didn't do much with it. We're not forgiving you again.
I'm not certain that you can circle Illinois and say, look at what we did. And I know that was an impressive win and the way it looked. I just don't think at the end of the year you can circle Illinois and say, forgive us for our other transgressions. So it's a much bigger game for Indiana to at least be competitive. I don't know if you have to win. You can't lose by 15. You can't lose by 2 touchdowns, and you can't get bullied. You got to prove that you've got some sand in your boots and lead in your ass, and that you can hold up against Oregon. Look, I'll say the same kind of like what happened with UW. I don't think that was it wasn't a phenomenal effort by any stretch of the imagination by UW, but I didn't think that they got embarrassed by Ohio State. And I know that this is different because Indiana and Oregon both have playoff aspirations, and I don't think Washington does, but they welcomed the number 1 team in there, and that was an 8-point game going into the 4th quarter, and you move the ball. So, it's something like that. Moral victories, and it's a little different because Indiana has bigger aspirations than Washington is right now, but something like that where, Autzen a tough place to come win, and I'm not expecting Indiana to do it, but, drag them into deep water. Make Oregon play 4 quarters. And if they beat you, by 10, they score late to pull away, I think you can hold your head. But if this is a 17-point victory, or 17-point lead, and then you score a meaningless touchdown with 6 minutes to play, and you're like, oh, we lost by 9 or whatever. No, those are 2 different games for me.
Washington takes on Rutgers Friday night. I got to be honest. I kind of thought this Rutgers team was going to be a little bit better after their start. They had some explosives in their first few matchups. Now they were playing Ohio, Miami of Ohio, and Norfolk State. But you don't necessarily think of Rutgers as being particularly good, and at times they look pretty electric. Things kind of fell back down to earth the last couple weeks with losses at home against Iowa and on the road against a not very good Minnesota team.
Yeah,
this is one of those games, and we said this about the Maryland game too, and it proved to be a little bit of a challenge. If you are who we think you are, you go beat Maryland, and they kind of played with their food a little too long, and it got a little wonky, but they found a way to win, and that was a gut check game. This is similar in the sense that this is a game on your schedule that if you're really a top 25 team, you just handle business.
Yeah.
And you can kind of do what you want. If you want to have Coleman have one of those 3 or 4 touchdown games and kind of pad his Doak Walker resume, you can. If you want Damon Williams to sling it and you want him to kind of get comfortable in the pocket, so you kind of lean into that a little more, kind of like the Eagles did last week where they were like, Saquon, our receivers are really pissed. We're going to throw a little more than we should normally. They end up losing that game. But Washington could do something like that where, hey, we're going to kind of lean in to a lot of stuff under center or even just in the pocket in general. And we're going to throw the ball. Washington should be able to do what they want and pick up a pretty comfortable win in a raucous environment on a national stage against a Rutgers team that looked pretty good 2 weeks ago. And the wheels have kind of fallen off. To me, this is, again, a game where I want to see more from Damon Williams within structure. And I keep saying that. I said it in the preseason. I keep hammering that point. And I really do think right now he can get away with it. Against Maryland late in games, you can get away with it. Later in their schedule and against some of the best teams they're going to play, they're not going to be able to allow Damon Williams to run back there for 6 seconds, run around, scramble, and throw the ball. He's got to stop doing that, and he's got to stop taking so many hits. So this is a game I'd like to see him more. It's not more in control because he's largely been in control, but more within the structure of the offense. I keep saying it because it's what matters.
We need to see a maturation process.
Thank you. Okay.
And it's that, like, we know, I think we both feel this way, and most people that watch him, this kid's got star potential. He looks really good. I think he's a bigger version of Kyler Murray. And we, people forget now because we kind of shit on Kyler Murray in the NFL. Kyler Murray was a really, really good college player. But what does Kyler Murray struggle with? Again, when he plays this kind of hero ball, what I really liked in the second half of that game against Maryland is, dude, Damon, if you're going to run, just run. Right. If you're not comfortable, like I think at times we fall into this trap with mobile quarterbacks where they try to prove a point that they win from the pocket. Look, we all know you want to win from the pocket. And I think sometimes those dual threat guys, They don't like being labeled as dual threat. No, I'm a quarterback. Cool, man. But you can't sit back there for the sake of argument and trying to prove a point to us. So when you sit back there and you start patting the ball, and it's just anytime if I'm a UW fan and I see this, my heart just sinks. I'm like, God, Jesus. Like I know where this goes. Dude, you know, it's like that's not pocket presence. That's not sliding. That's not being prepared to throw. And I thought in the second half, he did a much better job of, all right, 1 read, 2 read, not there. Cool, go. I mean, I know you're trying to prove to us something, man, but we got to win games.
Right.
And you can't win games taking 6, 7, 8, 10-yard sacks. Penalties and sacks are the #1 drive killers in all of football. Across, I don't care what level you're playing at, it's like a 70% reduction in chances to score when you take a penalty or you take a sack.
Right.
And you just you can't do it. And sometimes the best thing, throw it away. Look, if it's not there, go put one in the 9th row back there. Just sling one. And so, yeah, I need to see a maturation process of we play in structure, but like it's not there. Cool, run, go. And by the way, you don't have to take hits. It's not there. Go get me 6 yards and slide down. I'll take 2nd and 4. My God, I'll take 2nd and 7. The other one is we got to, if you're UW, you've got to get back to finding Jonah Coleman. I thought it was malpractice the last couple weeks with the lack of usage. And again, I get it. You're excited about your receivers. You got some freshmen that are exciting. You got Boston on the outside, but dude, at some point you want to protect your young quarterback, get the NFL back there going. So
that's the other reason I comped it to the Eagles. It felt like that, where it was like, okay, too much of this, not enough of superstar in the backfield. You went away from what worked, and the Eagles lost. The Huskies almost lost, and it was kind of for the same reason.
Yeah. And so Washington, like you're sitting there at 4-1, and I was high on Washington, and I'm at this weird, like, I don't know. It's like I'm like we were climbing, and then kind of hit a bump at Ohio State, but I wasn't too concerned about it. And then Maryland, God, after that first half of Maryland, I was like, well, crap. I'm like, there was my Washington pick. And they just look so bad. And now you've kind of stabled it out a little bit. But this next stretch, right? Rutgers, Michigan, Illinois. Like this is Rutgers, there's no excuse. You lost to Rutgers last year in a game that you dominated. Washington lost like 3 games last year that they had no business losing. I give you Washington State, Rutgers off the top of my head. They outgained Rutgers by like 300 yards.
Did they lose to Maryland last year too?
Yeah, they lost to
Somebody
Maryland. Yeah, was it USC that lost? I think USC lost to Maryland too.
Okay. So one of them lost to Maryland.
Yeah, maybe Washington did, but the Rutgers game and the Washington State game, I just remember like games that you can't lose. And this is a Rutgers game at home. No, there is no reason, none, zero, zip, zilch, that you should lose to Rutgers. And then you get into Michigan, Illinois, and that's again where let's see what you got, right? Michigan's on the road. They're okay, not great. And then Illinois is a good, solid team, right? And so prove something. We knew this stretch here was going to be kind of the like you said, the prove it medal. So, you know, for Washington, this is go time. You can't have another game where you look like you're spinning your wheels and you don't know what you're doing. Put together a 4-quarter game, right? You did it against Washington State. Go put together 4 quarters and get your offense started early. Get Coleman going. Get Boston involved. Get your quarterback, rolling here. And let's see a dominant effort against Rutgers, and then get ready for a really tough back-to-back on the road at Michigan, and then back at Illinois. Injury update, and this is big. Washington doesn't have the depth. They need guys back. Sounds like Takario Davis, the All-American corner, sounds like he should go in this one. And then the other 3, John Mills and Carver Willis. That's one half of your line. And by the way,
that might be line, 2 or your 3 best alignment.
Yeah, you really like this is big, and we don't know. Fish was kind of non-committal. He said neither one of these injuries was like long term, but I don't know. It didn't sound. This was a day and a half ago that
I get the sense Willis isn't playing.
I don't think so.
Based on the way they've talked about it. That doesn't mean we don't know anything. I'm not reporting anything insidery. It's just that the vibe is very much like they're going to lean on
And Wills was in a walking boot, and I know that's the part that worries me because boy, there was some.
It's Rutgers. It's Rutgers on Friday at home. It's a game you win. It's just a game you win.
I hope so, man. But I'll give the other one too. Maryland's D-line was good. I mean, they got some injuries, but I was impressed. Maryland's D-line was hunting. Yeah. I don't know what Rutgers can
Rutgers doesn't have Maryland's D-line. They should be fine.
But yeah, the Husky O-line in that game when they had some injuries was a little like, yeah. And this is the one thing we know. Durfee too, their defensive end, doesn't at some point he's going to come back. So that's the other one. Washington should get bodies back, and they're going to need them. Because the depth on this team is it's not great. We know if Washington is going to have a 9-win season, they need their guys back. Their backups are not going to beat the Michigans, the Illinois of the world. They won't do it.
Oregon State, Wake Forest, we can get to it. I do want to talk USC, Michigan. I don't want to dwell on Oregon State very long. Once you're firing assistants, you're 0-6,
everyone's
arguing semantics about whether a reporter's telling the truth, saying your recruiting class is solid when I myself have said, hey, you're going to lose your best. I've tweeted hinting you're going to lose your best commit.
You know how bad it is? What balls do you have to go on, call people out saying you're lying, and then have the nerve to say that your recruiting class is rock solid, and then the very next day, the number one recruit you have announces that he's not there?
The reporter you said wasn't telling the truth already hinted 2 days ago is about to decommit. And they still don't, I don't think, know who it is. There's another kid that told me I'm decommitting pretty quick here. I'm kind of waiting to get everything lined up. Like I've said to Oregon State fan, at this point, just to prove a point, I'm intentionally on social media leaving breadcrumbs so that people can go back and go, oh, well, he wasn't lying because, while he says it's solid, Nemec did hint Deegan Rose is about to decommit like 3 days ago. I wonder where he got that. And I've also hinted at who that other decommit might be. So when that happens and they say it was rock solid and there's no way he knew and he was making it up, just keep in mind that I'm literally leaving breadcrumbs on social because your head coach is worried about whether or not I'm telling the truth when, come on now. Wake Forest looks better than we thought. Robbie Ashford, the former Oregon dual sport athlete, quarterback, and baseball player, he flipped on signing day years ago. I was actually in studio at 1080, now 105.1, The Fan, when he flipped. And he went to Oregon for a very little time. He's bounced around. He's there now, and he's their guy. They look decent. And again, when you're 0-6 and you've lost to App State and a not very good Fresno State team, everything's kind of on the table. So the fact that Wake Forest, I believe, has beaten the last couple of weeks, NC State and who's their other one that's not bad.
Yeah, and by the way, they have been competitive. Like Wake Forest, Dicker down there, they're 3-2, but even I'll look it up here.
Excuse me, they lost to
there too.
NC State, and they lost a squeaker.
Yeah, by like 3 points.
Georgia Tech, and then, to Georgia Tech, and then last
Georgia
week
Tech.
on the road they beat Virginia Tech. They have been competitive in all their games, including a ranked, and they should have won that game, a ranked Georgia Tech team. They're pretty good. And if this is your get-right game.
34-24 NC State and 30-29 against the number 16 team in the country, Georgia Tech. And then they beat Virginia Tech last week.
There we go. Thank you. Because Lord knows it's a struggle at times.
Yeah, but who's Virginia? I mean, Wake Forest. The only reason we're paying attention to Wake Forest is because they're playing the O for Beeves.
Listen, man, I don't want to get into a whole bunch of stuff. Once we start doing the, you're not telling the truth back and forth thing, I'm just not interested in covering you then. Okay, fine. Do what you're going to do. I wish them success. I like a lot of the kids. I've said before, I was a huge fan of Trent Walker. I went out of my way to go to one of his high school games. I wrote a story this week about Skylar Thomas, who led the team in tackles last year, came back. His brother is a big-time recruit. He's got 20 offers, Auburn, Oregon. He chose to go to Oregon State because his brother's had such a good experience. And he said, I'm locked in. There's no chance I decommit. My brother had a good experience here, and Oregon State was his first offer when he had nothing. And, they were my first offer too. And even though my recruitment really picked up, they treated my family right. So as long as Bray's around, I'm here. That was a nice thing. If you missed it, Skylar Thomas gave it. Honest to God, it brought me to tears. His press conference after the Houston game, he was asked about, is this the all-time low for you guys? And he said, no, this is a high point, man. I still get to wear this jersey, and I still get to be at Oregon State competing with my brothers, and things are hard, but I get to play football. And I love football, and I love Oregon State, and I love Corvallis. And we get lost in the sauce so much about no one's going to remember Gary Payton in 10 to 15 years. And what's the percentage cut for Blueprint Sports or whatever? And should Jamie Christensen lose his job? You know what football is all about? Guys like that. That's what it's really all about. And that's what I'd like to see Oregon State get back to is you may not be happy with this team if you're an Oregon State fan. Hell, you might be downright furious with administration and this coaching staff because your success rate percentage tells you that you should be 4-2 right now. You should have 4 wins, and you don't, and it's coaching. But those kids don't deserve to be booed. Those kids are trying. You've seen that the last couple of weeks. I thought that was questionable at Houston early in that game. I think that's changed, and Texas Tech mostly. And we've kind of seen that turn where these kids are trying. They're trying. They're losing in the margins on bad coaching. I think there's some personnel issues. I think there's a lot going on. But support those guys, because guys like Trent Walker and Skylar Thomas are what it's all about. And they are damn proud to wear that Beaver jersey. That's all that really matters. I don't think Oregon State's going to win this week. They are going to have another decommitment. It's coming. It's inevitable. The kid has already told lots of people. His high school coaches know. He's told his teammates, I'm not going there. So it is coming. Again, there's some more downslope to go. Focus on the Skylar Thomases and Trent Walkers of the world, because that's what you've got to hang on to right now if you're an Oregon State fan until things change. And that's all I care to say, man. I don't want to sling mud with a head coach. It's not.
Well, I'm with you. It's gotten to the point now where it feels like you're just beating a dead dog, right? Or kicking a wounded animal. And I'm with you. I don't know what else to say. Like, you don't want to give oxygen to a team right now that, I mean, like you said, what do you say? I get that too, where Oregon State fan loves to give me shit saying, you just love to hammer the Beavers. You're always negative. Give me something positive. Look, I'm not in this business to crap on anyone. Like, I don't want negative stories. I root for local teams. Mike Riley is one of my favorite human beings that I ever covered. I relate more to Oregon State than I do Oregon. Coming out of high school, I mean, not now, but like when I was coming out of high school, if you had given me Oregon and Oregon State, the programs they were 10 years ago, I would have picked Oregon State, right? That's just the sort of kid I am. I'm not a shocking development looking at me. I'm not a super flashy, facilities guy. I like kind of blue collar.
You don't want to play in highlighter yellow spandex uniforms?
It's just not, I'm not, I'm not.
Let the suit loose.
That message would have resonated with me. Oregon State just wasn't that was never an option coming out of high school. They were just so bad. It was an option. They wanted you. It wasn't an option for you. Right. Yes, it wasn't like I was like, no.
I just want to be clear, because sometimes people who weren't recruited are bitter. That isn't what you're doing.
No. Oregon State was so bad. Oregon State's message to me was, if you blow out your knee or something and you get hurt and no one else wants you, you can still come play here. That's literally what I was told from Oregon State. That's how bad it was at Oregon State. Was like, if no one else wants you, you can still come here because we don't have other options. They were just abysmal. They were a joke. And then Mike Riley came along and built that program up. And then the Dennis Erickson thing, had that happen, I would have gone to Oregon State. I want to root for Oregon State. I want to root for the Washington States. I want to root for the Oregon States. The Washingtons and the Oregons and the USCs, they have such built-in advantages. I like to see the little guy. And so when people say that you're just negative, I don't want to be negative, but you can't pee on me and then ask me to tell you that it's raining. Like, and so at some point, if you want me, I can either just not talk about you, and maybe, like you said, that's what you do. Because either you don't talk about you, or it's going to be something that's negative. Because right now, your GM quit, your director of NIL quit. You're literally, like you said, you're getting into semantics to try to make yourself look better, and you look like a fool. Like, and the performance on the field, it's just, there's nothing good. I don't know what to point out other than I thought that was a very well put argument. You said, well, root for the players, root for the kids that are out there playing their ass off, trying to do something that have some pride. Because pride's a hell of a thing. And that's like when you're playing Wake Forest and you're an 0 for team. Now, I've never been on a team that was 0 for 6, but I've been on some bad teams. And the thing that keeps you going is pride, right? The name on the back of the jersey. They always say, like, well, there's another Oregon State thing, right? Which one matters, the name on the front or the name on the back, right? The name on the front is what you play for, right? Like, you represent your school. But at some point when it's not going well, the thing that gets you up, the thing that gets you, like, football is a brutal sport, man. And you get to these points of the season and you're an old lineman, dude, your back hurts, your neck hurts. I'm dealing with 2 broken fingers. I mean, shit, I still have them. Half my fingers look like this. Yep. Your fingers are broken. I got a smashed foot. I'm tired. My girlfriend's bitching at me. I'm struggling, I'm struggling with math. I mean, there's a lot going on, right? And the thing that gets you up and gets me going and gets me through those days is the name on the back of my jersey. Because, yes, it may say Beavers on the front. It may say Oregon State, and that's who I represent. But when I go out there in a game where I know that no one's going to watch for the most part, and I know my season isn't going anywhere, what motivates me? Not to embarrass myself. And that's my name on the back. I am not going to go out there and put out a horseshit effort and get embarrassed. I'm not going to let some guy across the line from me kick my ass all game and be like, my God, that when we played Oregon State, the center on that team, I mean, I remember games like that. I don't remember their names, but I remember playing teams and was like, how is that guy on scholarship? And that's the thing, is there has to be a pride factor. And that's where the name on the back matters. And so for every one of those kids at Oregon State, yes, you're playing for your school, but when you're 0-6, have some pride. Have some pride with the name on your back. Have some pride that your roommate, your buddy that you're playing next to, and you go out and don't quit. And so far, that's the one thing I'll give those guys is the last couple of games, they've played their ass off. Hasn't worked.
Absolutely.
It hasn't worked, but they're playing their ass off. And so I'm with you. If you want something positive, it's that. Is that some of those kids, this matters to still, and the tape they're putting on, and whether it's this one or the play you're going to play next, you only get so many of these in your life, right? There's only get so many of these to play, and make sure that the tape you're putting out there is representative of who you are. And that's the other one. When you watch tape, you don't see the name on the front, because when you watch the coach's tape, it's the all 22, right? It doesn't show you from the front, it shows you from the back. It shows your number and it shows your name. And that's who you are. What you put out there for 12 games a year, that's what you put out there. And so that's my positive message that I'm with you after that. Everything else that's happened at Oregon State, I hope you figure it out, and that sometime next year, or maybe at the end of this year, we can have some more positive things to say. But I'm with you. There just isn't. I don't know what there is to say that's positive.
Yeah. I do want to say one more thing, and this is a little bit maybe inside baseball for folks. When you as a journalist are called out, even if, I know people think that I shoot from the hip, and I'm opinionated on here. When I report something, I almost always have 2, 3, 4 sources.
Oh, check with me. I've been around the block many a time, and I'm telling you, people, he takes more pride and more caution in making sure he has stuff all the time where he feels comfortable. I've seen it, and you're like, man, I know this is happening, but I don't know if I should put this out there, or I don't know. I mean, I know you take a lot of journalistic integrity. I will give you that to the cows come home.
So what bothers me is when someone starts questioning my credibility, and then they're basically arguing semantics. It's like, well, kind of you're telling the truth, but you're not telling the whole truth, and you're making me look like an incompetent fool. I start as a journalist. It bothers me as a human being. It does. I'll be honest. It bothers me as a human being. And so I have taken the steps to, and you know this because we've talked about it during this year before. Sometimes we tape a pod. I'll say, I trust you. You're not going to tell people where I get stuff, but I say, here's where I have this from. This, and this here. So I'm going to say it because I have it from here, and here. So again, when you start doing that and you're going, man, I don't want to get called a liar for stuff that I know is going on. So I am going to start having a person in media or 2 people in media that I kind of run by what I'm hearing and kind of tell them without telling them exactly who my sources are, and say, I heard this from this type of person. This was a former, his former high school coach, his trainer, he told me, his dad called me and was upset. And, his mom told me. And I'm literally doing that before there's decommitments, before there's something else, just so someone else can be like, yeah, man, you had it. You knew. The fact that you teased that Deegan Rose was going to hey, should Deegan Rose decommit? Here's somebody that Oregon State could look at. I wonder if I just took that out of thin air. And if you go back and look at my tweets, I'm not a guy who goes, hey, if DeCorian Moore should decommit, here's another receiver for Oregon to consider. I don't do that. So if there's some weird outlier tweet, at this point, I'm kind of leaving breadcrumbs. I am. And I feel kind of embarrassed about it, to be honest, because it feels like it feels beneath me, to be honest. Like, to have to do that when I feel like most of my career, and I've had mistakes. I've been a young journalist and missed the mark, man. But in recent years, I'm so careful with stuff before I say, like, this kid's going to decommit, or these kids are saying their offer was pulled, or these kids, credentials weren't at media check-in and they got left outside the game. There's so many people I've checked with before I report something like that for somebody to kind of on a technicality try to throw me under the bus, it insults me as a professional and as a person. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Michigan and USC, this is interesting to me because it's the battle of 2 different styles, at least traditionally what Michigan's been. I know they're not the Michigan of the Harbaugh era where it was all toughness and sand in your pants and the whole thing. But they still kind of have that identity to some extent. I mean, they've got a freshman quarterback, but Justice Haynes is one of the best running backs in America. I am fascinated by this one in the sense that after getting physically embarrassed, the score didn't indicate it, but they were physically embarrassed the last time they stepped on the field in a loss to Illinois. I want to see after a bye, how much work have you really done? Because if you're USC and you get bullied by Michigan, it's time to start looking honestly in the mirror. And I know Lincoln Riley's buyout is rumored to be $90 million. I don't know if that's true, but that's the rumor. So I don't know if you can move on, but it is time to seriously have an internal look. If the kids we're targeting in recruiting, if where we allocate our money in NIL in the Big Ten is working. Yeah. Because if you're getting bullied all over the field against the Illinois and a good but not great Michigan team, what the hell are Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State going to do to you most years? So this is a real gut check game for, it feels like, the entire USC program. I can't remember a game, and it's not, I don't mean a bowl game. I don't mean a college football playoff game, a middle of the year, non-rivalry, regular season game for USC where I go, this is going to tell me kind of who you are. And I think this is a stamp it. We will know if Lincoln Riley can cure his ills, if they can battle and beat this Michigan team. And if they get run all over, shame on Lincoln Riley. And it's time to really look at things.
Yeah, because look, Bryce Underwood is not going to kill you with his arm. You look at Michigan, they want to be 65 to 70% run. I don't think they've had a game where they have thrown more passes than they've run. I mean, I think ideally with Michigan, you want to throw the ball, 20 times and you want to run the ball 34. Again, you have one of the best backs in the country. And when you saw, like when they played Oklahoma just dismantled. Oklahoma's defense, by the way, is really good. Turns out that Brent Venables guy knows what he's doing. But, I mean, Underwood in that game was 9 of 24 for 142 yards. Now, Justice Haynes still went out and put up 125 yards. Like, you're not going to stop Justice Haynes. You're not. He's going to run for 100 yards. Arguably, he might be the best back. That and the kid out of Missouri. They're both quite good.
Ahmad Hardy, Jonah Coleman, and Justice Haynes are the three. Those are the dudes.
Yeah. And so I expect Michigan to be able to run the ball, but I mean, if you're USC at that limit, make that and at least make him earn those yards and not the explosive plays. And I remember last year, it was the most damning thing I've ever seen. USC won that game. Michigan could not throw a football. Like under any circumstance, they could not throw. And they had to go basically a 2-minute drill. They had to go like 80 yards. And they didn't have timeouts, and they couldn't throw the ball. And you're like, well, this is over. And Michigan ran the ball on them. I've never seen someone run a 2-minute offense running the football. And yet Michigan did it. And
Illinois started to do it last 2 weeks ago at USC too. 2 chunk plays.
The field goal drive. Yeah, they needed a field goal to win. Like we were like, oh, USC scored too much. Like Illinois has timeouts. They're going to come out slinging. No, they're not. They ran 2 run plays. So, yeah, at some point, USC, dude, read the room.
Right.
I am with it. It is shocking that you went into the Big Ten, a league known for running the football, and you are 2 years in, and apparently you still are completely ill-prepared. I mean, I am with you. This is a huge game because this is the exact test that USC needs to pass. You have a quarterback that doesn't scare you, that shouldn't be able to kill you, should be able to commit more resources to stopping the run, right? You should play some heavy boxes and dare Bryce Underwood to beat you. And that's the thing. If Bryce Underwood throws for 275 yards and 3 touchdowns and he beats you, okay. All right. I can live with that.
No, you can't. And here's why you can't. Yeah. No, I hear you. But at the same time, part of the problem is that USC's secondary is dog ass. Yeah. I mean, they can't stop a nosebleed right now. Yeah. And there's no excuse for it. Like you said, we said in the preseason, like, would they get 10 points per game better last year? And you go, if they take even a little step forward, then they've regressed. I mean, and they've regressed pretty significantly. You can't give up 300 yards to a quarterback. You can't give up 250 yards to a running back.
I guess my point is
you got me fired up.
Don't get run over. Do not get run over. Put some lead in your ass and stop the run, or at least limit it. because Lincoln Riley needs to start stacking some real wins, and Michigan's fine. They're the 15th or 16th ranked team in the country. Fine. Michigan is not elite. And if at some point USC go prove that like Lincoln Riley was the right guy. And it's at USC. You're at home. Don't lose this game. Don't lose this game and have the defense show up. I'm with you. This is a very intriguing game to say the least.
I have looked up number one pick odds because I am a psychopath. Are you ready for some of this?
Yeah. What do we got?
I just want to see what you think the best value is on the board, and then I'll read you some of my already bets where I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Okay.
Lenora Sellers is the highest odds or best odds.
Is he really?
Plus 400. I think that's a terrible bet. I would not touch that.
Horrible. Hey, Lenora Sellers is not going to be the number one pick.
Fernando Mendoza is tied with him at plus 400.
Okay.
Dante Moore, we said this would happen, that if they had a good game against Penn State, get those odds before that game, because otherwise he's plus 450. He's right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you've got Ty Simpson plus 700, Garrett Nussmeier plus 1,000, John Mateer plus 1,200, Ruben Bain Jr. plus 1,500, Carson Beck plus 2,500, and then I'll read you some names that are just in the long shot department. Sam Levitt, TJ Parker, Arch Manning.
Peter
Wood
may not be the starting quarterback at Texas before the end of this year.
Peter Woods and Drew Aller.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sitting on right now Dante Moore at plus 2,000.
Yeah.
He's down to plus 450. I've got Fernando Mendoza at plus 1,400. And I've got John Mateer at plus 5,000.
Yeah.
Those are my number one, because I made them months, right? All these are now weeks and months ago. Mateer's down to 12-1 because he got hurt, but he was 50-1 when I made the bet. 20-1 for Dante Moore. He's now at 4.5-1. Anything stand out to you from that group other than it seems we still don't know who QB1 is, but it seems like Mendoza and Moore are climbing like we thought?
Yeah. Well, one, I think what stands out is there isn't a standout, right? There just isn't. And
by the way, no offensive tackle even mentioned in that whole thing. The offensive line class is bad. That's important to know.
We can talk about this at one point. I think old line play in general. If you want to know why some of the NFL stuff looks as bad as it does, it's offensive line play. Like we're in an offensive lineman crisis.
Yep.
Colleges are not preparing them for it. The coaching in the NFL is not very good. Training camps basically being taken away. I mean, but so anyway, O-line play is an issue. There's bad O-line play. Even on good teams, there's bad O-line play. Go watch the Seattle Seahawks right guard sometime, by the way. Just go ahead and just circle that.
You found that too, huh?
Anthony Bradford, just go ahead and just
holy cow.
I watched that, and look, I know about bad O-line play in the NFL. You know, there's a reason why I lasted, 2 years, and then I was out. And I watched that. And I'm like, shit, I can do that. Like,
he's really, really bad.
It's awful. Like at times, some of the Chargers O-linemen, like the Charger centers, is it Bozeman?
They benched him.
Good. Like I watched that, and I'm like, what are we doing?
He was a team captain. They benched him this week. They announced they're benching him this week.
He's so bad. But yeah, like they're just. And Bain, the kid out of Miami, is a really, really good player. But the fact that like he's mentioned in there, like the NFL is a league of professional men, and there is certain metrics that you have to have in order to play in a league of professional men. And Bain's fine, but he is not. He is not one of these. When you saw Myles Garrett, when you saw I think Nick Bosa, not so much Joey Bosa. You see some of these guys that are edge rushers. You're just like, okay, that's a freak, and they're not there, and maybe some emerge, but like it just feels like this year in college football, there's a lot of good players, but not necessarily guys that you look at and you're like, dude, this guy immediately comes in and is a true difference maker. They don't necessarily fit the metrics. The film doesn't necessarily pop. I think Jeremiah Smith does this at Ohio Smith, but he's not draft eligible. So it's just, like you said, I don't think there's the fact that the best defensive prospect, well, maybe that's Caleb Downs, but
it's best safety. Yeah.
He's a safety, and safeties ain't going number one, right?
He'll go 6, 7, 8, even in a draft that lacks star power because he's a safety.
Yeah, there just doesn't seem to be that star-laden guys in the draft. There's no Brock Bowers coming out at tight end. And sometimes you have those years where, and as the season goes on, people may develop, but this may be one of those where you look at and you say, hey, the difference between three, because normally in the NFL draft, right, they always say like there may be 10 guys, right? And you go through those 10 guys, and then after that, between 11 and like 40, that's the same player.
If you ask Isaac Ropp, the list is like 4. And then at 5, he's like, I don't know, and I don't care.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
And then after 40, it may be 41 to 100.
Right.
It just depends on fit and where you got. This may be one of those years where there's 2 guys that emerge, and then after that, it's what kind of flavor do you like?
Right.
What's the best ice cream? Well, I like zone corners. Well, I like man corners. So I don't know how many consensus number 1 players at positions that you're going to find in this year's draft. And again, it's early on, but it's going to be one of those. But the fact that Lenora Sellers, and again, no offense to Lenora Sellers, he's a fine football player, that Lenora Sellers, I
think that's a pick your flavor scenario. Like you just said, there is no guy. So you want the athletic dual threat guy, you'll go Lenora Sellers. If you want the pocket passer, you go Mendoza. If you want the high rising tweener, but it may be a little young, you go Dante Moore. And that's why those are the top 3. I think this is really important for Oregon fan to understand. This is not shaping up to be a good scenario for Dante Moore staying. Doesn't mean he's not going to stay. But ideally, you would have liked multiple quarterbacks to have lived up to the hype, where you'd say, man, Klubnik's a stud. Nussmeier's a stud. Holy cow. Is Arch Manning going to go? He's amazing. The fact that all these guys have fallen off, and some of them are going to have to stay, and you've got Underwood that's now 2 years away, but he's coming up and going to be good. That incentivizes that much more for a quarterback who's hot to go, dude, there's no competition this year. Mm-hmm. There's no elite edge rusher. There's no franchise offensive tackle in this year's draft. That nobody sees it that way, that there's no obvious guy. There isn't. Caden Proctor might end up being a guard at the next level.
Yeah, like he came in with all, that's another guy, right? Can we talk? He came in with all this hype. And by the way, he is a youth.
He's huge.
He's huge. Yeah. But when you watch that Florida State game, he might have been their worst offensive lineman. I mean, he put on, it was dog mess tape.
It bothers me because that's my closest comp for Emmanuel Iheanacho right now.
Yeah.
You know what have you watched his film? Do you get what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I've heard the whispers of no, I have not watched his tape.
He's mountainous, but he's a little bit clunky, and his technique's not great, but he's so huge that just running around him is enough time to block. Yeah. But so that won't be the case in college. So he's got work to do.
Yeah. So that's a guy that came in that we all thought was going to be, the end all to be all. And he has not looked very good. He just hasn't. Even the kid out of Utah, Spencer Fano, who again was supposed to be a first round pick. And I've watched a couple of Utah games. And again, it's there's time, but it hasn't looked great at times. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's interesting that some of these guys that came in that just haven't quite lived up to the billing. The one I like is the names that you threw out there. And this is just kind of keep an eye on it. Because again, every year we do this, especially when there's not like guaranteed high level prospects. I have been really impressed the last couple of weeks with Ty Simpson and what he's doing at Alabama. And again, when you're looking at this, it's not necessarily about numbers. Again, the college game, being successful in college does not mean you're going to be successful in the NFL. They're two different. So you look for traits. You look for, does this translate well to the NFL game? And when I've been watching Ty Simpson the last couple of weeks, it looks, and this is like the Dante Moore thing too, it looks NFL-esque. The pocket presence, the mechanics, reset. I'm a big reset guy. If you can reset your body when you have pocket movement, right? Can you flip your hips when you're on the roll? We're rolling to the right and we've got to throw back across our body. Can we reset? Can we change our platform? Do we have the different arm angles throws?
Can you be moved off your spot and still be an effective mover of the sticks?
Yes. And the last couple of weeks, against Georgia, I thought Ty Simpson, that was a masterclass.
Agreed.
He looked so good. And so to me, when this is, when I look at Indiana play, a lot of what Mendoza does, it's just not, that scheme is not an NFL scheme. It's just not.
Right.
And that kind of
True.
that concerns me a little bit. When my two quarterbacks, if I had to take like kind of your flyers there, Dante Moore, I just do it. I think Dante Moore, if he wants to come out, I think there's a real good chance Dante Moore is the number 1 overall pick. And if you wanted someone with a little more of a kind of a long shot odd, I really, and against Florida State, it wasn't pretty, but he had no help. His offensive line was atrocious. But Jeremy Bernard's got something figured out down there, the receiver at Alabama. That's the best receiver at Alabama. It's not Ryan Williams. And Jeremy Bernard guy's really good. And Ty Simpson has really impressed me these last couple weeks. So if you want to take a flyer on someone to be the number 1 overall pick, and he's 6'2" and kind of fits the mold, I would take a stab there.
Right. When there's no, like Ruben Bain, to your point, is 6'3", 270. That's not that edge freak 6'4", 250, 245.
And he's edge. A beast, but he's not the twitchy. I'd be interested to see what he tests at. And again, this is just me.
He was so insanely productive in high school. He's like the most productive edge rusher I've ever seen in high school.
Like when I watch him, again, an absolute beast, but again, who are you beating?
Right.
Do you have, like when you watch Aiden Hutchinson at Michigan, yeah, he was productive, but some people didn't like that guy. When I watched kind of the length that he had, when I watched the motor that he played with, it was kind of like a Max Crosby, although Crosby was kind of a late bloomer. Like I said, there's just times where I see it and I'm like, that's NFL. And there's other times you look at it and you're like, well, is that NFL or is that you are an insanely good player that's playing against bad collegiate tackles?
Mm-hmm.
And I like Ruben Bain. I'm just not, and he'll be a fine player. I'm just not certain if that is 10.5, 11 sacks, defensive player of the year stuff.
He's not traditionally a 1-1 profile. And again, getting back to my point, there isn't that, if there's not a guy that they go, that's a franchise edge, that's a franchise offensive tackle, these are the 2 best quarterbacks, it's usually a good year if you're in the top 3 or 4 to come out.
Yeah.
Because there's a good chance that the guys that come back mature and get better. And then there's always those handful of guys that pop, the Cam Wards, right? This year, it started out, looked like it was going to be John Mateer. And suddenly it gets really tough to be the number 1 pick. If it's smooth sailing to and I'm not predicting anything. I'm just talking to you about the semantics of how an NFL draft works. When that 1-1 spot is so open, it tends to be that top 10's more willing to come out, not less.
Yeah.
Because they all kind of have a shot, because it's like, dude, there is no obvious tackle. There is no Joe Alt this year. There's not anything even close right now. So the pathway's wide open for Dante Moore. Again, the NFL Stock Exchange, if you don't listen to that podcast and you're into the draft stuff, maybe you turn this off when we get to draft, but if you're into it and you love it, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. And they've been on Dante Moore for a while. They just picked him to be the number 1 pick. So something to pay attention to. I think that does it for us, unless you've got something else. You probably want to go grapple with grown men. I know that's your thing.
No, I'm going to only fight exclusively children now. I'm going to pull a Kramer and I'm going to go to the kids class and just and beat up like on 8th graders and lowly high school kids. It's way easier for me.
Would you in a box? Could you sorry, I went Dr. Seuss on you. Would you be willing to do, and I'm not pinning you to this, I'm just asking if this is in your personality wheelhouse. Yeah. Would you teach a class of like 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders jiu-jitsu? Or would that just be your absolute hell?
No, I mean, I help out at my gym when they need me. My schedule doesn't really allow for a lot of that. It's the same reason I don't coach.
Yeah, you're on the air when school's out.
Yeah, and it's the same reason I've never coached high school football, right? I get offered a lot. Hey, will you come by? And I've done some like summer camps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But my schedule just doesn't. I'm from 3 to 7. I'm tied up every day, and really from 3 to 7, it's more like 1:45, right, to 7.
Yeah.
that's not real conducive to working with kids.
That's true.
Right. So I've done some.
Anytime you get into like 9 p.m. classes with first and second graders, people start questioning
like, man, hey kids, you want to come over to Uncle Beardy's house at 9:15 and and do that. So
and grapple
and grapple. So I've taught sometimes with like friends' kids or wives.
Yeah.
That want, or people that want.
Yeah, why not?
Well, I have that. Like, first off, don't take self-defense classes. They're totally useless. It's a waste of money. It's just, it's dumb. You can't learn to defend yourself in 45 minutes. All you're going to do is end up with a false sense of confidence, and you're going to think that you can handle the situation, and you're going to try to do something when you should just run. Best self-defense is to just run, get the hell out of there. And so I don't like that. It's like, well, I'm going to teach you how to kick someone in the balls for 45 minutes, or someone will be like, hey, show me how to rear naked choke someone. I'm like, well, that won't work. Like, I can't show you in 45 minutes.
They are also trying to get you. They're not standing there like, attempt something, attack me.
And it's way hard. Like, people like learning to choke. This is going to sound so weird. Learning to choke someone is so much harder than you think. Like, it just is. Like, you think, oh, well, you put your arm, it's just not the way it works. You'll sit there, like, I'll get people that come in and I'll like, here, grab my neck, and they're just sitting there and they're squeezing, and you're like, yeah, that's not it, man. They're like, they're trying to pull really hard, and you're like, that's not how you do it. So sometimes I'll work with that. Like, if someone wants to get into any of that, like I'll teach friends' kids or someone how to punch or kick. Those are pretty simple. Like, hey, these are some basic structure.
Here's how not to break your hand or your wrist punching someone.
Yes. Or if you do want to learn how to grapple or whatever, and it can be intimidating when you walk into a building and you've never done it before, I'm like, come over to your house, find someplace, soft, or, you've got a couple mats or whatever, and we'll do 2 hours. We'll do an hour twice,
2 hours,
two or three times. And then you can see whether it's something that you're interested in, and then I send you to an actual real school. So that's about the extent of what I do. So, but yeah, teaching. If you've ever been to a martial arts or a jiu-jitsu gym, the lifeblood of those are the kids. That's how you make your money. And we have a huge program at mine, Brazilian top team. Shout out all those guys, good dudes. You and we call them the little ninjas. It's the little ninjas class. You've never seen anything quite like 30 8-year-olds just run around like
they're allowed to wrestle.
And dude, and some of those kids are savages, man.
There's
some of those kids are so good. You're like, watching like an 8-year-old, like they just like flying arm bars. You're like, dude, that kid's gonna be savage. But that takes a certain, that takes a certain type of person to be able to do that. And so no, I could not. I could not handle a class of 30 kids. Those are. You have to have way more patience than I do.
My brother-in-law was an MMA fighter and actually fought in the Rose Garden when it was the Rose Garden. Still, it's been a while. He's since retired. He's older than me, so it's been a while since he fought. But he won a fight in the Rose Garden. He was just real close actually to UFC, and then he had kids and stopped. But he taught them everything. So I used to take care of my nieces and nephews, and they would want to like grapple, and they were like 8, 9, 10 years old, and I'm like, sure, whatever. But they actually knew what to do, and they could, and I could get out of it because I was so much stronger than them. Yeah. But they could get me in a hold that would legitimately hurt. Sure. Like they would just like, and I'm, okay. And then you have to because they really knew what to do, and they would wrestle each other and actually tap, and then they would let go. Like they were trained enough to do it, and they could do all kinds of stuff like choke holds and arm bars and
sure.
And it was fun to watch them, man. And they were little. I mean, real little, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And they knew all kinds of
There's little kids. We have a couple of them that you just know if that kid sticks with it, that kid
it's gonna be a problem.
That kid is gonna be a savage. It's a savage. But yeah, I always feel bad like when people, it's like, hey, I want to learn to defend myself. And you wouldn't if you wanted to, I'm a bad golfer, right? I got my golf hat on. I try to play golf and I'm not very good at it. And I got a buddy of mine that's helping me, and I actually like, okay, I'm gonna dedicate myself to this. I'm gonna try to play golf, and I work really hard at it, and I'm still not very good. Right? If I break 90, it's a good day. Right? If I shoot like an 88, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And I put so much time and effort into that, and I'm still not very good. And no one would expect you to go out having never played golf before and say, hey, give me an hour golf lesson, and then I'm never going to do it again for a year or 2 years. And then one moment, in the scariest moment of my life, in front of an entire group of people, I'm going to hand you a golf club and be like, hey, life or death, hit this drive.
Hit it 250 down the fairway.
It's not going to happen. And so, I feel bad, but we get, these people that, and it's mostly, they teach women, and it's like, okay, you've never had any sort of physical confrontation in your life, right?
Never been bored. Like, you just are trying to protect yourself.
And like, I'm going to show you for 45 minutes some horse shit thing about
what they should do is do a 45-minute class, drive them to a sporting goods store and buy them mace and say, put this in your purse. This is better than anything I could teach you during this window.
Yes. So when I am asked, I said, if it's a friend's daughter, and I've done it all the time, and I try to be very basic, and that's my advice. What do I do? Run. Scream, yell, dial 911, freak out, run. And then if everything else fails, you have run, you have yelled, you have called, nothing. And
then
now,
you can fire Trent Bray. Oh, no.
Yeah. Now you're in that situation. By all means, here are the 3 things that I would recommend to try to find a way to live. But if anyone tells you that they can teach you how to kick, punch, fight, strangle, defend yourself in 45 minutes, you just wasted, and I mean wasted, $150 or whatever the fee was. If you want to learn to do it, commit to doing it 2 to 3 times a week, do it for a couple years, and then you'll have some sense on what you're doing. And even then, sometimes, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm pretty decent at it. And if Brock Lesnar were to come up to me on the street, guess what I would do? Run, shoot him, mace him, call for help. And if all else fails, I'd fall on the ground, suck my thumb, and cry, and hope that he would be so disgusted that he would just kick me and walk away.
Yeah. So on that happy note, I got to get out of here. Like, subscribe, do the whole thing. We do appreciate you guys listening. This thing is slowly gaining steam, and we apologize for just one episode last week. Yeah. I have been under the weather. So, Suke, we'll see you soon.
Bye, brother.